Hello, friend. Welcome to Science for Sleep. Whether you're returning tonight or just finding this channel for the first time, this is a quiet place to slow down, learn something gentle, and let the day gradually fall away. Tonight, we are following one of the smallest and most quietly beautiful objects in the natural world, the pearl. You may picture it first as a smooth white bead on a necklace, or as a pair of earrings in a small velvet box, or as a pale round gem resting against dark fabric, softly catching the light. Pearls feel familiar because they have been used in jewelry for thousands of years. They appear in wedding earrings, old family necklaces, royal portraits, antique brooches, and quiet little keepsakes passed from one person to another. But a real pearl is much stranger than it first seems. Most famous gems come from stone. Diamonds form deep underground under extreme heat and pressure. Rubies and sapphires are crystals of a mineral called corundum. Emeralds grow inside rock when the right elements meet under rare conditions. But a pearl does not begin in rock. It begins inside a living animal. That single fact changes the whole object. A pearl is one of the few gems that is made by life itself. Not carved from a mountain, not cut from a crystal, not shaped by a jeweler first, but slowly built inside the soft body of a mollusk, usually an oyster or a mussel, while it lives in saltwater or freshwater. A mollusk is a soft-bodied animal. Some mollusks, like oysters, protect themselves by making hard shells. And inside certain shells, there is a smooth, shining layer called nacre. Nacre is also known as mother of pearl. It is the same material that gives many shells their soft rainbow glow, and it is also the material that builds a pearl. So a pearl is not really a stone in the usual sense. It is closer to a tiny, rounded piece of shell, layer after layer of shell material, wrapped around a hidden beginning. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you're welcome to subscribe, and if it feels natural, to leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find their way to this calm corner of the world, one sleepy traveler at a time. For a long time, many people learned that pearls begin with a grain of sand. It is a simple image, a little oyster resting on the seafloor. A grain of sand slips inside. The animal covers it, and slowly, a pearl appears. But the real story is usually not that simple. Most natural pearls probably do not begin with an ordinary grain of sand. Sand is common in the ocean, and oysters are built to handle tiny bits of grit. They can often move small particles out before anything unusual happens. Natural pearls are more likely to begin when something else goes wrong inside the animal. It may be a tiny parasite. It may be an injury. It may be a small piece of the animal's own shell-making tissue, ending up where it should not be. Then the oyster or mussel begins to coat that tiny disturbance with nacre. Not because it is trying to make jewelry, not because it knows beauty is forming, but because its body is responding to something out of place. And over time, that response can become something humans have treasured for centuries. This is part of why natural pearls were once so rare. Before pearl farming, people had to search for them by opening shell after shell after shell. In famous pearl regions like the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Mannar between India and Sri Lanka, divers once gathered oysters from the seafloor by hand. They did not know which shell might hold a pearl. Most held nothing. Some held small, uneven pearls. Only a tiny number held the smooth, round, glowing pearls that could become royal jewelry. A diver could help bring up hundreds or even thousands of oysters, and still the best pearl might never appear. That rarity gave pearls their power. They were not just pretty. They were unlikely. They were hidden. They were made in darkness underwater, inside a closed shell, by an animal that never meant to make a treasure. And this is where the pearl becomes so peaceful to think about. A small white bead resting in someone's hand is not only a decoration. It is a record of water, a record of time, a record of a living creature slowly covering something rough until it became smooth. So tonight, as we begin with the pearl you already know, we can let it become something deeper. Not just a jewel, not just a symbol, but a quiet biological wonder, made layer by layer in the hidden space between softness and shell. A pearl begins in a place most jewelry never touches. Not in a mine, not in a cave, not in a seam of crystal hidden inside a mountain. It begins in water, inside the body of a small animal with no bones, no face like ours, and no voice. That animal is a mollusk. Mollusks are one of the great animal groups on Earth. Snails are mollusks. Clams are mollusks. Squid and octopuses are mollusks too, though they look very different from the quiet shell-bearing kinds that make pearls. The pearl-making mollusks most people know are oysters and mussels. Saltwater pearls usually come from oysters. Freshwater pearls usually come from mussels. Both are soft-bodied animals, which means their bodies do not have a hard internal skeleton like a fish, bird, or mammal. Instead, many of them protect themselves from the outside world by building shells. An oyster shell may look like a rough grey stone from the outside. It can be uneven, ridged, and heavy, with edges shaped by water, age, and the place where it grew. But inside, the animal is soft. Its body rests between two hard shell halves, joined by a hinge. This kind of two-part shell is called a bivalve. The word simply means two valves or two shell pieces. A clam is a bivalve. A mussel is a bivalve. An oyster is a bivalve too. When the animal is alive, it can open the shell slightly to let water pass through. It can also close tightly using a strong muscle called the adductor muscle. That is the round, firm part people often see inside scallops. In oysters and mussels, this muscle works like a small living clamp. It pulls the shell shut when the animal needs protection. This is part of what makes a pearl so interesting. It is made by a creature that spends its life mostly hidden. It does not chase prey like a shark. It does not move through the sea like a dolphin. An oyster may spend much of its life attached to a rock, reef, or another hard surface. A freshwater mussel may rest partly buried in sand or gravel at the bottom of a river or lake. Yet inside that stillness, the animal is active. Water moves through its body. Tiny food particles are filtered from the water. Minerals are taken in. Shell material is produced. The animal is always maintaining the small shelter around itself. The shell is not dead armor placed there once and forgotten. It is built, repaired, thickened, and adjusted through life. A young oyster begins with a tiny shell, then adds material as it grows. The shell becomes larger at the edges. It may become thicker where strength is needed. It may become smoother on the inside where the soft body touches it. Many pearl oysters belong to a group called Pinctada. One famous species is Pinctada fucata, often connected with Akoya pearls from Japan and nearby waters. Another is Pinctada margaritifera, the black-lipped pearl oyster, known for many dark Tahitian pearls. The large South Sea pearl oyster, Pinctada maxima, can produce some of the biggest cultured pearls, often white, silver, or golden. Freshwater pearls often come from mussels, including species used in China, where freshwater pearl farming has become especially important. The exact animal matters because each species makes shell material in its own way. The shell's color, thickness, and inner shine can all affect the pearl that forms. So when someone holds a pearl, they are not only holding a pretty round bead, they are holding the result of a living shell-building system. That system is the same one the animal uses to protect itself. The same process that lines the inside of the shell can also coat a tiny object or piece of tissue inside the animal. Layer by layer, the animal adds material. Not with hands, not with tools, not with any plan to make something beautiful. It simply does what its body knows how to do. It makes shell. And sometimes, when shell material forms around a small hidden center, the result is a pearl. This is why a real pearl feels different from a cut stone. A diamond is shaped by pressure deep in earth, then cut by people into sharp faces. A pearl is shaped by a living animal in water, rounded by slow layers rather than carved edges. Its surface is not meant to glitter like glass. It is meant to glow softly, like the inside of a shell. And before we can understand that glow, we have to move closer to the quiet tissue that makes it possible. The hidden builder inside the shell. Inside the closed shell, the real maker of the pearl is not the shell itself. It is a thin, living layer of tissue called the mantle. The mantle sits against the inside of the shell, almost like a soft lining between the animal's body and the hard outer walls around it. It is delicate, but it does one of the most important jobs in the mollusk's life. It builds the shell. To build shell, the mantle releases minerals and proteins into the narrow space around the animal. This releasing process is called secretion. It simply means the tissue makes a substance and sends it out, the way skin can release oil, or the way a gland can release saliva. For oysters and mussels, the mantle releases the ingredients that harden into shell. One of the main ingredients is calcium carbonate. This is a common mineral in nature. It is found in limestone, chalk, coral skeletons, eggshells, and seashells. But inside a mollusk, calcium carbonate is not placed randomly. The animal controls where it goes. It arranges tiny mineral crystals with organic material, meaning material made by life, so the shell can grow in a strong and useful way. The outside of an oyster shell often looks rough. It may be grey, brown, chipped, ridged, or covered with little marks from the water around it. But the inside can be very different. In some species, the inner surface is coated with nacre. Nacre is also called mother of pearl. It is smooth. It is bright. And when the light moves across it, it can show soft colors like cream, silver, pink, green, or pale blue. This glow is not paint. It is not a surface polish added by people. It comes from the way the mantle builds the inner shell in thin layers. Each layer is tiny. Some nacre layers are only a fraction of the width of a human hair. Yet when many of them are stacked together, they create that soft shine people recognize in pearl shells. The animal makes these layers for a practical reason. The inside of the shell touches the soft body. If that surface were sharp or rough, it could harm the mollusk. So the mantle can line the inner shell with a smoother, safer material. In this way, nacre is not just beautiful. It is part of the animal's protection. It helps turn the inside of a hard shell into a calmer place for a soft body to live. A pearl begins when this same shell-building process happens in a different place. Instead of only coating the inside wall of the shell, the mantle's materials begin coating something inside the animal. That something may be very small. It may be a bit of tissue. It may be a tiny invader. It may be a small center that the animal's body treats as something needing to be covered. The mantle does not need to understand what it is making. It only follows its living pattern. It lays down material, then another layer, then another. The process that normally makes the inner shell smooth can begin to wrap around a hidden point. Over time, that wrapping can become round. The layers can become thick enough to hold light. And the same nacre that shines across the inside of a shell can gather into a pearl. This is why a pearl and mother of pearl feel like close relatives. One spreads across a shell's inner wall. The other gathers around a small center. Both come from the same quiet builder. Both are made through the same patient language of mineral, protein, and time. If you looked inside a pearl oyster, you would not see a tiny workshop. You would see soft tissue, water, muscle, shell, and the hidden mantle doing its work in silence. The animal draws minerals from the water and from its own body chemistry. It uses those materials to keep its shelter strong. It keeps the rough world outside and the soft body safe within. And sometimes, when that shell-making system begins coating something it would normally not need to coat, a pearl starts to form. The mantle explains how this is possible. A living tissue can make shell. That shell can be smooth and glowing, and under rare conditions the same process can build a jewel. But it also leaves something unsettled. For a pearl to begin, something must first be out of place. For many people, the pearl begins with a simple story. A grain of sand slips into an oyster. The oyster cannot push it out, so it covers the sand with smooth, shining layers until a pearl is made. It is easy to picture. A tiny rough speck, a quiet shell on the seafloor, a slow change from grit into beauty. But real pearls usually do not begin this way. Sand is everywhere in shallow coastal water. It moves with waves. It settles between rocks. It washes over oyster reefs and riverbeds. If every grain of sand that touched an oyster could become a pearl, pearls would not have been rare enough to decorate crowns, temples, and royal portraits. Oysters and mussels are also not helpless against small bits of grit. They live in water that carries mud, sand, broken shell, plankton, and tiny drifting particles. Many bivalves can move unwanted material away from their soft tissue. They can close their shells. They can push particles out with mucus, which is a slippery substance made by the body. They can use tiny hair-like structures called cilia to move water and particles across their tissues. Cilia are so small that you would need a microscope to see them clearly. They beat in coordinated waves, almost like grass bending in wind, helping the animal sort food from waste. So an ordinary grain of sand is often handled before it ever becomes the center of anything special. Natural pearls more often begin with something more unusual. A tiny parasite may enter the animal. A parasite is a small living thing that survives by using another living thing. In the sea or in fresh water, very small worms or other organisms can sometimes disturb the soft tissue of a mollusk. An injury can also start the process. The shell may be damaged, the mantle may be torn. A small piece of mantle tissue may become trapped inside the animal's body, instead of staying where it belongs. And because the mantle is the tissue that makes shell material, even a tiny misplaced piece can continue its old job in the wrong place. It can help form a pearl sac. A pearl sac is a small pocket of living tissue that surrounds the beginning point of a pearl. Inside that pocket, nacre can be added, layer after layer, slowly and quietly. This makes the pearl feel different from the old sand story. It is not just a piece of dirt being decorated. It is closer to a response. Something is out of place. Something has entered, shifted, or been damaged. And the mollusk answers with the same material it uses to make its shell safe. The response is not emotional. The oyster is not trying to create a symbol. It is not turning pain into beauty on purpose. It is following the body's simple rules. Cover the surface. Smooth the roughness. Separate the soft animal from whatever should not be touching it. In this way, pearl formation is more like repair than decoration. The animal is trying to protect itself. The beauty comes from the way protection happens. A rough beginning is hidden under thin layers of nacre. The surface becomes smoother. The shape becomes more sealed away. What started as a small problem becomes a small object. This is why natural pearls can be so varied. If the starting point is uneven, the pearl may grow unevenly. If it forms near the shell wall, it may become attached to the shell instead of becoming fully round. If the nacre is laid down more on one side than the other, the pearl may become oval, button-shaped, drop-shaped, or strange and flowing. These irregular pearls are often called baroque pearls. The word baroque is used for pearls with unusual non-round shapes. Some look like little clouds. Some look like drops of wax. Some look like tiny pieces of moonlit stone. They are reminders that pearls are made by living bodies, not machines. Even the smoothest pearl carries the history of a response. It began because something changed inside a shell. A hidden surface needed covering. A small disturbance was wrapped in mineral and protein until it could no longer feel sharp. And once the sand myth falls away, the pearl becomes even more interesting. Its beauty is not explained by the object at the center. Its beauty comes from the material that covers it. The soft, bright substance that the animal lays down again and again. Nacre. Nacre is the quiet material that gives a pearl its body. It is the substance that turns a small disturbance inside a mollusk into something smooth enough to rest against skin. At first, it may seem like nacre is soft because it looks soft. A pearl's surface does not flash like a cut diamond. It glows gently, as if the light is coming from just beneath the surface. But nacre is not weak. It is a careful mix of mineral and organic material, arranged in a way that makes it both smooth and strong. Most of nacre is calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is a mineral made from calcium, carbon, and oxygen. It is one of the most common building materials in nature. It appears in limestone cliffs. It appears in chalk. It appears in coral skeletons. It appears in eggshells. And it appears in the shells of oysters, mussels, clams, and many other sea creatures. Inside nacre, calcium carbonate often forms a crystal called aragonite. A crystal is a solid material whose tiny parts are arranged in an orderly pattern. Salt crystals, snowflakes, and quartz all have ordered structures. Aragonite is one of the crystal forms calcium carbonate can take. The same chemical ingredients can also form calcite, which is common in limestone. But in nacre, aragonite is arranged in very thin, flat pieces. These pieces are sometimes described as tablets, not tablets like medicine. Tiny mineral plates, much too small to see with the eye. Many are only about half a micrometer thick. A micrometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. A human hair is often around 70 micrometers wide, so one nacre layer can be far thinner than the width of a hair. These aragonite plates are stacked again and again. People often compare nacre to a brick wall. The aragonite plates are like tiny bricks. Between them is a softer organic material, like mortar between bricks. That organic material includes proteins and a substance often called conchiolin. Conchiolin is made by the animal. It helps bind the mineral layers together and gives the nacre a flexible strength that pure mineral alone would not have. This is one reason nacre is so remarkable. If you held only a crystal of calcium carbonate, it could break more easily along certain lines. But when the mollusk arranges thin mineral plates with organic layers between them, the material can resist cracks. A tiny break has to travel through layer after layer. It cannot simply split straight through. The structure slows it down. So nacre is not just beautiful. It is engineered by life, not with planning or tools, but through biology repeated over time. A mollusk builds it by releasing minerals and proteins from the mantle. The material settles into place in layers. Then more material is added. Then more. The inner shell grows smoother. The pearl grows thicker. The hidden center becomes more deeply covered. This same material can appear in two forms that people recognize. Spread across the inside of a shell, it is mother of pearl. Rounded around a tiny center, it is a pearl. The ingredients are closely related. The difference is shape and place. On the shell wall, nacre forms a bright inner lining, like a smooth room built for the soft animal inside. Around a pearl center, nacre wraps inward and outward at the same time, making a small rounded object inside the body. That is why a pearl and the inside of a pearl oyster shell can look as if they belong together. They do. They are made from the same quiet recipe. Mineral from the water and the animal's body. Protein from living tissue. Thin plates arranged with care. Layer after layer built in darkness. When a pearl is cut open, its inside may show growth layers, like a tree trunk shows rings. Not always as neat or visible to the eye, but still present in the structure. The pearl is not one solid drop of material. It is a history of repeated building. Each layer is a small record of the animal's life, the water around it, and the time it spent hidden in the shell. And yet the most familiar part of nacre is not its chemistry. It is the glow. Flat mineral plates stacked like pages somehow create that soft inner light. A pearl is made of hard material, but it shines as if it is holding something gentle beneath its surface. The glow of a pearl is not a simple shine. It is not like the bright flash from a mirror. It is not like the sharp sparkle from a diamond cut into many flat faces. A pearl glows because light has to travel through layers. When a beam of light touches a pearl, part of it reflects from the surface, but another part slips into the nacre. There, it meets layer after layer of tiny aragonite plates. Each plate is thin and flat, and each one bends the light a little. This bending is called refraction. It means light changes direction as it passes through different materials, the way a straw can look bent when it sits in a glass of water. Inside nacre, light is moving through mineral plates and thin organic layers. The mineral and the organic material do not bend light in exactly the same way, so the light keeps shifting as it passes through. Some light bounces back from one layer. Some reaches deeper layers before returning. Some waves of light overlap with others. That overlapping can make certain colors stronger and others softer. This is one reason the surface of a pearl can seem white at first, then cream, pink, silver, blue, or green when it turns slightly in the hand. The colors are not always pigments. A pigment is a substance that gives color by absorbing some light and reflecting the rest, like paint or ink. Pearl color can involve pigment, especially from the shell and the animal. But the soft shifting glow often comes from structure. The layers themselves change the way light behaves. This is called structural color. It is also seen in soap bubbles, butterfly wings, and the inside of some shells. A soap bubble may look rainbow-colored even though the bubble wall is clear. Its thin surface bends and reflects light in different ways. Nacre works with a similar kind of quiet physics, only built slowly by a living animal instead of floating in the air for a few seconds. This is why nacre thickness matters. If a pearl has only a very thin coating of nacre, the glow can look shallow. The surface may seem bright, but not deep. It may look more like a coating than an inner light. When nacre is thicker and more even, the light has more layers to move through. The pearl can appear warmer, softer, and more alive. In high-quality pearls, people often describe this as depth of luster. Luster means the quality of reflected light from a surface. But with pearls, luster is not only surface brightness. It is also how cleanly and richly light returns from beneath the surface. A pearl with strong luster can show a bright highlight on top, almost like a tiny window of light. Around that highlight, the surface may seem to glow more gently. The best pearls can look as if light is resting inside them. This is very different from a diamond. A diamond is beautiful because it is cut. Its hard crystal is shaped into angles that split and reflect light with sharp flashes. A diamond needs edges, points, and precise faces to create fire. A pearl needs smoothness. Its beauty comes from roundness, thickness, and layers. One shines by breaking light into bright sparks. The other shines by softening light into a calm glow. Even the surface texture matters. A pearl that looks smooth to the eye may still have tiny ridges and growth marks. Under magnification, its surface can show fine patterns from the layers beneath. If those layers are even, the pearl reflects light more cleanly. If the layers are uneven, damaged, or too thin, the glow can become dull. This is why pearl graders look closely at luster, surface quality, nacre thickness, shape, color, and size. They are not only judging beauty, they are reading how well the animal built the pearl. A small pearl can be more beautiful than a larger one if its nacre is deep and its luster is strong. And a large pearl can feel flat if its surface does not return light well. The glow is really a record of construction. It tells of mineral plates laid down with patience. It tells of organic layers placed between them. It tells of water, food, temperature, species, and time inside the shell. Nothing about that glow is instant. The animal does not make it in a moment. It does not arrive as a finished shine. It gathers. One layer, then another, until the pearl begins to hold light in its own quiet way. And because each layer takes time, the beauty of the pearl is also a measure of waiting. A pearl's glow is built slowly, not all at once, not as a sudden coating, not as a single hard shell poured around a center. It forms through repetition. The mollusk adds nacre in layers so thin that each one is almost impossible to imagine by itself. A single layer may be less than 1 micrometer thick. A human hair may be around 70 micrometers wide, which means many nacre layers could fit across the width of one hair. So when a pearl looks smooth and whole, it is really a stack of countless tiny additions, layer after layer, mineral after mineral, a quiet structure made through time. The exact amount of time depends on the animal and the kind of pearl being formed. Some cultured Akoya pearls, often linked with the Japanese pearl oyster Pinctada fucata, may be grown for about 10 months to 2 years before harvest. Larger South Sea pearls, often formed by Pinctada maxima, can take 2 years or more because the pearls are bigger and need thicker nacre. Freshwater pearls, often formed in mussels, may also take several years depending on the farm, the species, the size desired, and the water conditions. A pearl is not simply aging during this time. It is being built. The animal is alive. It is filtering water. It is feeding on tiny particles, including plankton. It is using minerals from its environment and from its own body chemistry. It is keeping its shell strong. And inside that hidden pocket where the pearl is forming, the mantle tissue continues to release the substances that become nacre. The process is steady, but not perfectly mechanical. A machine can make identical beads. A mollusk cannot. It responds to temperature, food, stress, disease, water quality, and the position of the pearl inside the body. If the water is too warm or too cold, the animal may grow differently. If the water contains too much pollution or too little food, the animal may become weaker. If the pearl shifts slightly as it grows, the layers may thicken unevenly. This is why time alone does not guarantee beauty. A pearl can spend many months in the shell and still become dull, uneven, or marked. What matters is not just how long it grows, but how calmly and evenly nacre is laid down. Smooth layering creates smooth surfaces. Even surfaces return light more cleanly. Thicker nacre can give the pearl a deeper glow, but irregular growth can create bumps, pits, rings, wrinkles, or flat spots. Some of these marks are tiny. A pearl may still look lovely from a distance, then reveal little traces of its making when held close. These marks are part of why pearl grading is so careful. People look at size, shape, color, luster, surface quality, and nacre thickness. A round pearl with bright luster and a clean surface is valued because so many things had to go right. The animal had to survive. The pearl had to remain stable. The nacre had to build evenly. The surface had to stay smooth. And the glow had to develop through many delicate layers. In natural pearls, this was even more unlikely. No farmer placed the beginning point. No one chose the animal. No one controlled the water, watched the growth, or planned the harvest. The pearl simply formed if conditions inside the mollusk allowed it. That is why old natural pearls could be so treasured. They were not only rare because few shells held pearls. They were rare because even fewer held pearls that were round, luminous, large, and smooth. Time gave the pearl its beauty, but time also gave it many chances to become irregular. A slight shift inside the shell, a change in the water, a small interruption in the animal's health. Any of these could alter the final shape. So the pearl becomes a record of patience, but also a record of uncertainty. Every layer adds depth. Every layer also carries risk. And when all those layers happen to gather evenly around a hidden center, the result can seem almost impossibly calm. A sphere made by a living animal, a surface made smooth by thousands of microscopic moments, a jewel that only exists because time kept passing inside the shell. But because life does not build in perfect circles every time, the pearl's next secret is shape. Shape is one of the quietest clues a pearl can give. From far away, people often imagine pearls as perfect little spheres, smooth white circles, matched beads on a necklace, round earrings resting beside the face. But real pearls are far more varied than that. Some are round, some are nearly round, but not quite. Some are oval, like tiny eggs. Some are button-shaped, with one side flatter than the other. Some are drop-shaped, tapering gently at one end, which is why they are often used in pendants and earrings. Others are circled, with visible rings or grooves around the surface. And some are baroque. A baroque pearl is an irregular pearl. It does not follow a neat round shape. It may twist, swell, bend, or fold in ways that make it look almost sculpted. Some baroque pearls look like small clouds. Some look like melted wax. Some look like tiny river stones polished by water. These shapes happen because a pearl is not made in a mold. It is made inside a living animal. For a pearl to become a near-perfect sphere, nacre has to build evenly in every direction. The center of the pearl has to sit in a position where layers can gather around it smoothly. The pearl sac, the small pocket of tissue around the forming pearl, has to coat the surface in a balanced way. The growing pearl also needs enough room inside the animal, so one side does not press against the shell or soft tissue too strongly. If one side receives more nacre than another, the shape begins to change. If the pearl rests against the shell wall, it may flatten. If the center is uneven, the layers may follow that unevenness. If the pearl shifts slightly while it grows, its surface can develop ridges, curves, or rings. This is why perfectly round natural pearls are rare. In a natural pearl, no person chooses the starting point. No person places a round bead at the center. The pearl begins by chance, often around something irregular, in a location no one controls. For it to become round, many quiet conditions have to align. The animal has to keep laying nacre smoothly. The pearl has to grow without being pressed too much in one direction. The inner layers have to stay balanced over months or years. It is a little like trying to form a snowball in total darkness, without hands, while water, tissue, minerals, and time all keep changing around it. Cultured pearls made with a round bead nucleus are more likely to become round because their center begins round. A bead nucleus is a small rounded object placed inside the mollusk to start pearl growth. Even then, the the final pearl is not guaranteed to be perfect. The animal still has to cover that bead with nacre. The layers can still grow unevenly. The pearl can still become slightly oval, circled, or marked. This is part of why matching pearls for a necklace can be so difficult. A classic pearl strand may need dozens of pearls that are close in size, color, luster, and shape. For fine jewelry, the pearls may be sorted again and again until they look calm and balanced beside each other. A single pearl may be beautiful on its own, but a matched strand asks nature to repeat itself, which nature rarely does exactly. Baroque pearls remind us of this more clearly. For centuries, jewelers have used irregular pearls not as mistakes, but as natural forms with character. During the Renaissance in Europe, some goldsmiths used Baroque pearls in elaborate pendants, turning their strange shapes into tiny bodies, animals, sea creatures, or decorative figures. The pearl's irregularity became part of the design. A bump could become a shoulder. A curve could become a fish's body. A long drop could become a hanging ornament. In that way, Baroque pearls show the living side of pearl formation. They do not hide the process. They reveal it. They show that nacre was laid down around something uneven, in a real animal, in real water, over real time. A perfect sphere may feel peaceful because it is balanced, but an irregular pearl can feel peaceful in a different way. It has not been forced into sameness. It carries the small accidents of its own making. Its shape tells us that every pearl is a record, not a copy. And once shape begins to vary, the pearl becomes more than round or not round. Its surface, its glow, and its color all begin to give it a kind of quiet personality. A pearl's shape tells part of its story. Its color tells another. The classic pearl most people imagine is white. A soft white bead with a gentle glow resting on a necklace or sewn into a wedding dress. But pearls are not only white. They can be cream, silver, pink, peach, lavender, blue, green, gold, grey, or nearly black. Some look warm, like candlelight. Some look cool, like moonlight on water. Some seem to change slightly as they turn, showing a faint second color over the main one. That second color is often called an overtone. A white pearl may have a rose overtone. A silver pearl may carry a blue or green overtone. A dark pearl may flash with peacock colors, with green, purple, and bronze shifting together across the surface. This color is not usually painted on. In natural and untreated cultured pearls, much of the color comes from the animal that made the pearl. The mollusk species matters. Its shell matters. The inner edge of the shell, often called the lip, can give a clue to the kinds of colors the animal may produce. A black-lipped pearl oyster, Pinctada margaritifera, has a dark inner shell edge. This oyster is famous for producing many Tahitian pearls. They are called Tahitian because they are strongly linked with French Polynesia, including the islands and lagoons around Tahiti. But many are not pure black. They may be charcoal, silver, green, blue, aubergine, or peacock. Aubergine means a deep purple, like the skin of an eggplant. Peacock pearls can show dark green and purple tones, like the feathers of the bird. Golden South Sea pearls come from the large pearl oyster, Pinctada maxima. This species lives in warm waters across parts of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Golden pearls are often linked with places such as the Philippines and Indonesia. The same species can also produce white and silver South Sea pearls, especially from oysters with a silvery inner shell. These pearls can be large because Pinctada maxima is one of the largest pearl oysters used in pearl farming. Some South Sea pearls can measure 10, 12, or even 15 millimeters across. A small seed pearl may be only 2 millimeters wide, so a large South Sea pearl can feel almost like a small moon beside it. Akoya pearls, often formed by Pinctada fucata, are usually known for white or cream body color, with rose, silver, or ivory overtones. They are often smaller than South Sea pearls, commonly around 6 to 8 millimeters, though sizes vary. Their beauty is usually tied to sharp luster and a clean, bright surface. Freshwater pearls, often grown in mussels, can show soft pastel colors. White, peach, pink, and lavender are common. Some freshwater pearls are dyed after harvest, but many natural freshwater colors come from the mussel itself and the nacre it lays down. The thickness of nacre also changes how color appears. A thin layer may look pale or flat. A thicker layer can make the color feel deeper because light has more material to pass through and reflect from. Trace elements and organic compounds can also affect color. Trace elements are tiny amounts of substances mixed into the material, so small they may not change the pearl's structure, but they can influence tone. The result is that a pearl is never just one color in a simple way. It has body color, which is the main color. It may have overtone, which is the soft color floating above it. And it may have orient, which is the shifting rainbow effect caused by very fine nacre layers. When a pearl turns in the hand, these layers of color can move gently across its surface. A pearl that looked white a moment before may reveal pink at the edge. A gray pearl may flash green. A golden pearl may deepen into warm honey. Color turns the pearl back toward its place of origin. Not just a bead, not just a jewel. A white Akoya pearl carries one kind of oyster and one kind of water. A dark Tahitian pearl carries another. A golden South Sea pearl carries warm lagoons, large oysters, and years of nacre growing in silence. The color is a map, soft and small, leading outward from one shell into whole waters. The color of a pearl begins to lead us away from the jewelry box. It leads back to water, to lagoons, to rivers, to warm coastal bays, to quiet ponds where mussels rest partly buried in mud or gravel. Pearls can form in both saltwater and freshwater, but the animals and the results are often different. Saltwater pearls usually come from oysters. Freshwater pearls usually come from mussels. Both oysters and mussels are bivalves, with two shell halves joined by a hinge, but they live in different worlds. A saltwater pearl oyster may hang from a rope in a warm lagoon. It may grow in clear coastal water, where tides move gently through a pearl farm. A freshwater mussel may live in a lake, pond, or slow river, filtering water from the muddy bottom. The water around the animal shapes everything: its food, its growth, its shell, its stress, and eventually the pearl it may produce. Saltwater pearls include some of the most famous names in pearl jewelry. Akoya pearls are often linked with Japan and the oyster Pinctada fucata. They are usually known for a bright white or cream color, a round shape, and sharp luster. Many Akoya pearls are fairly small compared with South Sea pearls, often around 6 to 8 millimeters wide. That is about the size of a small pea. Tahitian pearls come from the black-lipped pearl oyster, Pinctada margaritifera. They are strongly connected with French Polynesia. Despite the name black pearl, many are not truly black. They may be grey, green, blue, purple, or peacock-toned, with shifting colour across the surface. South Sea pearls often come from Pinctada maxima, a large oyster found in warm waters near places such as Australia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. These pearls can be white, silver, or golden. They are often larger than Akoya pearls, sometimes reaching 10 to 15 millimeters or more. A pearl that size feels heavier in the hand. It does not seem like a tiny bead. It feels like a small, round object with real weight, built slowly inside a large living shell. Saltwater oysters usually produce fewer pearls at one time. In many pearl farms, one oyster may be carefully implanted, with one round bead nucleus, sometimes more depending on the species and method. A nucleus is the center around which the pearl grows. In many saltwater pearls, that center is a smooth bead, often made from shell. The oyster then coats it with nacre. Because each oyster may produce only one or a few pearls, each pearl requires space, care, and time. Freshwater mussels can be different. Many freshwater pearls are tissue nucleated, meaning the farmer places a tiny piece of mantle tissue into the mussel instead of a hard round bead. In some cases, one freshwater mussel can produce many pearls at once. This is one reason freshwater pearls are often more available and less expensive than some saltwater pearls. China became especially important in freshwater pearl farming during the late 20th century. Over time, freshwater pearl farming improved greatly. Older freshwater pearls were often small, rice-shaped, or uneven. Modern freshwater pearls can be much rounder, smoother, and more lustrous than many people expect. Some are even difficult to tell apart from saltwater pearls without close testing. Freshwater mussels also tend to produce pearls made mostly or entirely of nacre. This can give them a soft depth because there may be no large bead nucleus inside. Instead, the pearl can be layers of nacre through much of its body. Saltwater and freshwater pearls are not better or worse in a simple way. They are different records of different animals. A saltwater oyster in a tropical lagoon builds one kind of pearl. A freshwater mussel in a lake or pond builds another. The shell species matters. The water temperature matters. The minerals and food in the water matter. Even the farmer's timing matters, because harvesting too soon may leave a pearl with thinner nacre, while waiting longer may increase size and depth, but also risk damage or irregular growth. So the pearl is never only the pearl. It is the water around it. It is the animal that made it. It is the place where that animal lived. And long before pearl farms floated in neat rows across lagoons and lakes, people searched wild waters by hand, hoping that one closed shell among thousands might be holding light inside. Before pearl farms, there were pearl waters. Not neat rows of oysters hanging from ropes, not carefully watched shells in protected lagoons, but natural beds, hidden beneath warm seas, where oysters gathered on the seafloor in rough clusters. For thousands of years, people searched these waters because no one yet knew how to reliably grow a pearl on purpose. A pearl could not be planted like grain. It could not be shaped like metal. It had to be found. One of the most famous pearl regions in the ancient world was the Persian Gulf. This long, shallow body of water lies between the Arabian Peninsula and Iran. Its warm, salty waters held pearl oysters, especially species such as Pinctada radiata, sometimes called the Gulf pearl oyster. Around Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and the coast of what is now the United Arab Emirates, pearling became part of coastal life for centuries. Bahrain, in particular, was known for pearls in the ancient world. The island sat near rich oyster banks, and its location made it part of trade routes linking Mesopotamia, Arabia, India, and the wider Indian Ocean. A pearl found in those waters could travel far from the shell that made it. It might pass from a diver to a merchant, from a merchant to a ruler, from a port town into a palace, temple, or treasury. Another famous region was the Gulf of Mannar, the stretch of sea between southeastern India and Sri Lanka. The water there is shallow in many places, with banks where pearl oysters once lived in large numbers. For centuries, the fisheries near Mannar and the coast of Tamil Nadu were known for natural pearls. These were not casual beach finds picked up from the sand after a walk. They came from organized work. Boats went out to known oyster banks. Divers descended again and again. The oysters were brought up, piled, opened, sorted, and searched. The Red Sea was another ancient pearl region. It runs between northeastern Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, connecting to the Indian Ocean through the narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Pearls from Red Sea waters could move into Egyptian, Arabian, and Mediterranean trade networks. The same sea that carried incense, spices, glass, textiles, and precious metals also carried pearls. Small, pale objects born inside oysters became part of a much larger human world. The pearl's journey did not begin in a jewelry shop. It began in muddy banks, coral reefs, tidal shallows, and coastal settlements, where people learned the habits of the sea. Pearl fisheries depended on memory. Divers and boat captains had to know where oyster beds lay. They had to understand seasons, currents, weather, and depth. They had to return to the same beds year after year, hoping the oysters had grown large enough and that some small number of them might contain pearls. An oyster bed was not an endless treasure chest. It was a living population. If too many oysters were taken too quickly, the bed could weaken. If storms damaged the bottom, or if disease spread, the harvest could fail. Long before people spoke of ecology in modern terms, pearl communities depended on the health of these underwater places. The work also created coastal economies. In some towns, pearling shaped the rhythm of the year. Boats were repaired, ropes were prepared, divers trained their bodies, merchants waited for the harvest, families depended on the season's luck. A single good pearl could matter, but most shells gave nothing. This is what made natural pearls so different from ordinary decoration. Gold could be mined and melted, ivory could be carved, gemstones could be cut from rock, but a natural pearl had to be discovered inside a living shell, and the search was filled with uncertainty. No one looking at a closed oyster could know what was inside. The rough shell might hold only soft tissue. It might hold a tiny, uneven pearl. Or very rarely, it might hold a smooth, round gem, bright enough to travel across kingdoms. So the pearl became tied to place. the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, the Gulf of Mannar, the coasts of India and Sri Lanka, warm water, oyster beds, wooden boats, diving stones, baskets, ropes, and patient searching. The geography gave pearls their path into history. But the true cost of a natural pearl was not only measured in distance or trade, it was measured in breadth. The value of a natural pearl was shaped by the body that made it, but it was also shaped by the body that had to find it. For much of history, pearl diving was done without modern scuba tanks. No air hose, no metal cylinder on the back, no mask with a steady stream of breathing gas. A diver went down on a single breath. In the Persian Gulf, pearl diving seasons once shaped whole coastal communities. Boats could leave shore with divers, rope pullers, cooks, captains, and merchants moving out toward known oyster banks in shallow, warm water. A diver might use a nose clip made from shell or bone to keep water out. He might carry a small net or basket for oysters. In some traditions, a stone weight helped him sink faster toward the seafloor. The descent had to be quick, because every second underwater mattered. At the bottom, the diver gathered oysters by hand. The shells might be attached to rocks, coral, or each other. The water could be cloudy from stirred sand. The diver had to work by touch as much as sight, collecting as many oysters as possible before the need for air became too strong. Then he pulled a rope, or began rising, and the crew helped bring him back to the surface. A single dive might last less than a minute. Some skilled divers could stay down longer, but even then, the work was exhausting. Again and again, the diver returned to the water, down through the blue-green surface, hands searching over the bottom, oysters placed into a basket, then back upward into air and sunlight. This could happen many times in a day. The sea looked calm from above, but the work below was full of strain. There was pressure in the ears, salt in the eyes, sharp shells against the hands, long hours under the sun, and always the uncertainty of the harvest. Most oysters did not contain pearls. Even when a pearl was found, it might be tiny, dull, flattened, cracked, or oddly shaped. A perfectly round natural pearl with strong luster was rare. A large one was rarer still. This is one reason old pearls could become so valuable. Their price was not based only on beauty. It came from the enormous amount of searching hidden behind that beauty. Imagine a pile of rough oysters on a boat deck, their shells grey, brown, and uneven. Each one had to be opened. Inside, there might be only the animal, or there might be a small, irregular pearl, hardly useful for fine jewelry. Or, once in a great while, there might be a smooth, pale bead with enough glow to stop the work for a moment. In some pearl fisheries, the oysters were not opened immediately at sea. They could be brought to shore and left until the shells opened or the soft tissue loosened, making the pearls easier to find. This was unpleasant work, but it was part of the old pearl trade. Pearls did not arrive clean and shining from the water. They passed through labor, smell, sorting, bargaining, and risk before they ever reached a necklace. The danger was real. Divers could suffer from exhaustion, shallow water blackout, injuries from sharp shells, and threats from marine life. In deeper or more difficult waters, every dive carried a small edge of uncertainty. A diver had to trust his breath, his rope, his crew, and his knowledge of the sea. And still, the pearl itself might not appear. This made natural pearls very different from decorations that could be produced with steady effort. A goldsmith could melt gold. A carver could shape bone or ivory. A stone cutter could polish a gem. But the pearl diver could only search. The animal had either made the pearl or it had not. The sea had either hidden one there or it had not. That uncertainty gave pearls a special kind of power. A pearl was not only a smooth object, it was the result of a living shell, a dangerous dive, a patient search, and a rare discovery. By the time a fine natural pearl reached a ruler, a merchant, or a wealthy family, it had already passed through many hands. The diver who found the oyster, the crew who pulled him up, the sorter who noticed the pearl, the trader who carried it inland or across the sea. A small white bead could hold the work of an entire coast. And because so much effort could end in nothing, the pearls that did appear began to feel like more than jewelry. They became signs of wealth, reach, and power. For a long stretch of human history, pearls stood near the top of the jewel world. Today, many people think first of diamonds when they imagine wealth, engagement rings, or fine jewelry. But diamonds did not always hold that place. Before modern diamond cutting became advanced, and before large diamond marketing campaigns shaped public taste in the 20th century, pearls were among the most desired gems on earth. A diamond found in the ground does not look like the bright stone in a ring. It must be cut. It must be polished. Its angles must be shaped carefully so light can enter, bounce, and return in flashes. The diamond's beauty depends partly on human skill. The same is true for rubies, sapphires, emeralds, and many other gemstones. They are mined from rock, then shaped into jewels. A pearl was different. A fine pearl could come from a shell already smooth, already rounded, already shining. It did not need sharp cutting. It did not need flat faces. It did not need to be transformed by a lapidary, the name for a person who cuts and polishes stones. It arrived from the animal almost complete. A pearl might be cleaned, drilled, matched, and set into jewelry, but its main beauty was already there. That made it feel almost impossible. A small living animal, hidden beneath water, had made something that looked finished enough for a queen, emperor, merchant, bride, or priest. This ready-made quality helped pearls become prized in many ancient cultures. In ancient Rome, pearls were signs of extreme luxury. Roman writers describe pearls as objects of wealth and display, worn by elite women and admired for their rarity. The Latin word for pearl was margarita, a word that still echoes in names connected with pearls today. In ancient India, pearls were treasured in royal courts and sacred stories. In China, pearls were used as ornaments, gifts, and symbols of rank. In the Persian Gulf, pearl wealth helped shape coastal trade for centuries. A pearl could move from oyster bed to boat, from boat to market, from market to a court far inland. By the time it appeared on clothing or jewelry, it carried the distance of its journey. Part of its value came from the fact that people could not easily make a convincing copy. Glass beads could be shaped, shell could be polished, metal could be brightened. But the deep glow of nacre was difficult to imitate. A fake pearl might shine on the surface, but a real pearl seemed to hold light in layers. Its surface was smooth, but not empty. It had depth. It had weight. It had a softness that came from biology, not a workshop. This is why natural pearls could become more valuable than many stones. They were rare before anyone touched them. They were beautiful before anyone cut them. And they could be worn close to the body without feeling hard or sharp. A strand of pearls rested differently from a necklace of faceted stones. Faceted means cut into flat faces. A faceted gem catches light in flashes. A pearl catches light in a quieter way. It glows against skin, cloth, and shadow. That softness became part of its appeal. Pearls were used in earrings, necklaces, rings, crowns, embroidered clothing, and religious objects. They could be sewn onto robes. They could be placed in gold settings. They could be worn as single drops hanging from the ear. A large round pearl did not need much decoration around it. Its power came from being whole. This sense of wholeness made pearls feel complete in a way few other gems did. They seemed less like raw material and more like finished gifts from the sea. And because they were so hard to find, they became signs of access. To own many pearls meant someone had wealth, trade connections, and the ability to command rare things from distant waters. A pearl necklace was not only beautiful, it was evidence. Evidence of divers, evidence of merchants, evidence of ships, markets, and coastlines. Evidence that the wearer belonged to a world where rare objects could be gathered and displayed. Long before diamonds became the most famous symbol of luxury, pearls had already held that quiet throne. Their beauty did not shout, it rested. And because they looked naturally finished, people in power used them to show that their own place in the world was just as rare, polished, and difficult to reach. Because pearls looked finished when they came from the shell, they were easy to turn into symbols. A ruler did not need to explain what they meant. A large pearl already looked rare. It already looked difficult to reach. It already carried the softness of water and the cost of human labor. In ancient Rome, pearls became one of the clearest signs of luxury. Roman elites wore them in earrings, necklaces, rings, and embroidered clothing. The writer Pliny the Elder, who lived in the 1st century, described pearls as the highest ranking of precious things, placing them at the top of the Roman jewel world. Roman women of great wealth could wear pearls not only around the neck, but sewn into garments or hanging from the ears in pairs. One pearl showed wealth. Many pearls showed power. They told everyone that the wearer had access to distant seas, skilled merchants, and enough money to own something most people would never touch. In China, pearls also carried deep meaning. They were connected with wisdom, purity, and protection. Ancient Chinese art often showed dragons chasing or guarding a shining pearl. The pearl in these images could stand for spiritual power, hidden knowledge, or heavenly energy. Pearls were used in court objects, ornaments, and gifts, and they were valued not only as decoration, but as meaningful treasures. A pearl could sit in a carved box, hang from a robe, or appear in a ceremonial setting where its shine suggested order, rank, and good fortune. In India, pearls were woven into royal and sacred life. They appear in ancient Sanskrit texts and in stories connected with kings, gods, oceans, and beauty. The waters around southern India and Sri Lanka helped supply pearls for centuries, especially through the Gulf of Mannar. Indian rulers used pearls in necklaces, turbans, earrings, and jeweled ornaments. A ruler's pearl necklace was not just a beautiful accessory. It showed command over trade, tribute, and rare materials from the sea. In Persia, pearls from the Gulf became part of courtly wealth and long-distance exchange. The Persian Gulf was one of the most important natural pearl regions in the world. Its pearls moved through trade routes linking Arabia, Mesopotamia, Persia, India, and the Mediterranean. A fine Gulf pearl could leave a small oyster bed and eventually appear in a palace far from the shore. By the time it reached a royal collection, it had crossed languages, markets, and landscapes. Later, in European royal courts, pearls became part of the visual language of monarchy. They appeared on crowns, collars, gowns, rosaries, and state portraits. Queen Elizabeth I of England, who ruled from 1558 to 1603, was famously painted wearing rows of pearls. In some portraits, pearls cover her hair, clothing, and jewelry in repeated pale drops. They help create an image of purity, wealth, and controlled power. The pearls were not only decoration, they were part of the message. They made the body of the ruler look almost untouchable, surrounded by rare objects gathered from across the world. Pearls were also used in religious settings. They could decorate crosses, reliquaries, altarpieces, and ceremonial clothing. A reliquary is a container made to hold a sacred object or the remains of a saint. The soft glow of pearls suited these objects because pearls were often linked with purity and heavenly light. Unlike sharp gems, they did not flash with hard brilliance. They gave a quiet radiance. This made them useful in places where beauty was meant to feel sacred, not loud. A large, natural pearl could carry more meaning than its size suggested. It represented the animal that made it, the diver who risked his breath for it, the oyster bed that held it, the merchant who bought it, the ship or caravan that moved it, the ruler who could finally wear it. That whole chain of effort could gather inside one pale sphere. This is why pearls work so well as signs of power. They were small enough to wear, but difficult enough to possess. They could be sewn onto a sleeve, placed in a crown, or hung from the ear. Yet behind them stood oceans, labor, trade, and chance. Power made pearls visible. Royal courts and wealthy families placed them where everyone could see. But visibility did something else too. It gave pearls stories. And once a pearl had a story, it could begin to feel almost mythical. Once pearls became signs of power, they began to gather stories. Some stories were carefully recorded. Some were repeated so many times that history and legend began to blend. But even when the details are uncertain, the stories show how people saw pearls, not only as objects, but as proof of wealth, taste, daring, and imagination. One of the most famous pearl stories comes from Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. Cleopatra ruled in the 1st century before the Common Era, during the final years of the Ptolemaic kingdom. She lived in a world where Egypt, Rome, Greece, and the Eastern Mediterranean were tied together by politics, trade, and war. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder later told a story about her and the Roman leader Mark Antony. According to the story, Cleopatra made a wager that she could spend an almost unimaginable fortune on a single meal. To prove it, she removed one of her pearl earrings. It was said to be one of the largest and most valuable pearls in the world. Then she dissolved it in vinegar and drank it. The story may not be completely literal. Pearls do react with acid because they are made mostly of calcium carbonate. Vinegar contains acetic acid, which can slowly break down calcium carbonate. But a large pearl would not vanish instantly like sugar in tea. It would take time, and it might need to be crushed or softened first. Still, the point of the story was not chemistry, it was spectacle. Cleopatra's pearl became a way to show wealth so extreme that it could be consumed and destroyed simply to make a point. Whether the event happened exactly as written or grew larger in the telling, it shows how powerful a pearl could be in the ancient imagination. A pearl was valuable enough to stand for a kingdom's luxury, small enough to fit in an earring, famous enough to be remembered for 2,000 years. Other pearls became famous because they passed from owner to owner. Some were given names, almost like people. The Hope Pearl is one example. It was once owned by Henry Philip Hope, a 19th century collector whose family name is also linked with the Hope diamond. The Hope Pearl is unusually large and baroque, with an irregular drop-like shape. It is not a perfect sphere, but that makes it even more memorable. Its color shifts from white at one end to darker bronze near the other. It looks less like a bead and more like a strange natural sculpture. Another famous pearl is La Peregrina. The name means the wanderer or the pilgrim in Spanish. It was found in the waters near Panama in the 16th century and became one of the most celebrated pearls in Europe. It was owned by Spanish royalty and later passed through several famous hands. Centuries after it left the sea, it was still appearing in portraits, collections, and jewelry. Its value came partly from its size and shape, but just as much came from its journey. A pearl can become famous because it has traveled through history. La Peregrina was not only a pearl, it was a witness to empire, royal marriage, portraiture, auction rooms, and changing taste. There was also the Pearl of Lao Tzu, sometimes called the Pearl of Allah. It is a very large non-nacreous pearl from a giant clam. Non-nacreous means it does not have the same layered mother of pearl glow as classic oyster pearls. It is more porcelain-like, with a different surface and structure. Its fame came from its size, unusual origin, and the many stories attached to it. Not every famous pearl is beautiful in the same way. Some are admired for roundness, some for size, some for history, some because they seem almost impossible to imagine coming from a living shell. This is what stories do to pearls. They add another layer. First there is the nacre, built by the animal. Then there is the human layer, built by memory. Who found it? Who owned it? Who wore it? Who lost it? Who told the story afterward? A small pearl in a drawer can be beautiful, but a named pearl becomes something more. It becomes an object with a path, a round piece of animal-made mineral that has moved through courts, ships, families, paintings, and legends. And once people began giving pearls meanings beyond their material, pearls became more than rare seaborne gems. They became symbols. A pearl can be measured. Its size can be recorded in millimeters. Its shape can be judged as round, oval, drop-shaped, button-shaped, or baroque. Its luster can be compared under soft light. Its surface can be checked for marks. But people have rarely looked at pearls as only measured objects. For thousands of years, pearls have carried meanings. They have been linked with purity, with tears, with the moon, with wisdom, with marriage, with mourning, with wealth, with softness, patience, and quiet transformation. Some of these meanings came from the way pearls look. A pale pearl has a gentle glow, not a sharp sparkle. It can look white, cream, silver, or faintly rose. When placed beside gold or dark cloth, it seems calm and clean. This made pearls useful in religious art, royal clothing, and wedding jewelry, where the smooth white surface could suggest purity or sacred light. In Christian art, pearls sometimes appeared as symbols of heaven, spiritual value, or moral beauty. The phrase "pearl of great price" comes from a short teaching in the Gospel of Matthew, where a pearl stands for something so valuable that a person would give up everything to possess it. The pearl was small, but its meaning was immense. Pearls were also tied to the moon. This connection is easy to understand when you picture a round white pearl in a dark room. Its surface can look like moonlight softened into a bead. In ancient and medieval thought, people often connected pearls with water, night, and the moon's pale glow. Some old beliefs imagined pearls forming from drops of dew, moonlight, or water inside a shell. Those stories were not scientifically correct, but they made emotional sense to people who saw pearls as objects born from the sea and filled with a quiet lunar shine. Pearls were also connected with tears. A pearl has the shape of a drop. Many are white or pale. Some hang from earrings like tiny tears held still. Because of this, pearls were often used in mourning jewelry, especially in Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries. Mourning jewelry was worn to remember someone who had died. After Prince Albert died in 1861, Queen Victoria wore mourning clothes for the rest of her life, and black clothing, jet beads, lockets, and pale pearls became part of the wider visual language of grief. Pearls could suggest tears without needing to show sorrow directly. They were quiet enough for mourning, but beautiful enough to keep memory close. At the same time, pearls became linked with marriage. A strand of white pearls could suggest innocence, loyalty, and elegance. Brides wore them in earrings, necklaces, hairpieces, and dress embroidery. In some traditions, pearls were also thought to bring wisdom or protect the wearer. In Chinese imagery, a shining pearl often appeared with dragons. The dragon might chase it, hold it, or guard it. The pearl could represent wisdom, power, good fortune, or a deep spiritual treasure. In India and Persia, pearls were tied to royalty, beauty, water, and luxury. In European courts, they became part of portraits that showed rank, wealth, and controlled grace. Pearls also became connected with femininity, meaning ideas of womanhood, softness, beauty, and social status. This was not because pearls belonged to one kind of person. It was because, across many cultures, pearls were often worn close to the face, throat, hair, and chest. They appeared in earrings, chokers, gowns, and wedding ornaments. Their roundness and glow fit the styles people used to express refinement and beauty. But beneath all these meanings, there is the shell. The closed shell mattered. A pearl was hidden before it was found. It formed in darkness. It was protected by hard outer walls. It grew slowly inside a living animal, unseen by the people who would later admire it. That hidden origin made it feel mysterious. A pearl was not hammered into shape. It was not cut into beauty. It seemed to become beautiful in secret. This is where the symbol becomes strongest, because the real pearl is not only pale and round, it is not only rare, it is a record of something being covered. Something rough, misplaced, injured, or unwanted is wrapped again and again in nacre, the surface becomes smooth. The disturbance disappears from view, and the object left behind feels peaceful. The meanings people gave to pearls were poetic, but the process underneath was physical. A living animal covered a hidden trouble with layer after layer of shell. That is why the pearl's symbolism still feels so natural. Its beauty is not separate from its beginning. It comes from the way the beginning was transformed. The pearl's meaning feels powerful because it is not invented from nothing. It comes from a real physical change inside the shell. A mollusk does not make a pearl because it wants to create beauty. It does not know that people may one day string the pearl onto silk thread, set it in gold, or place it in a museum case. The animal is doing something practical. Something small is out of place. A parasite may have entered the tissue. A tiny injury may have disturbed the mantle. A small piece of shell-making tissue may have shifted into the wrong position. And the animal responds by covering the surface. It uses nacre, the same layered material that smooths the inner shell. The process is slow and repeated. A thin layer of calcium carbonate crystals is laid down. Then a thin organic layer helps bind it. Then another mineral layer follows. The animal does not remove the problem in the way a hand might remove a splinter. Instead, it separates the soft body from the disturbance by wrapping it. The roughness becomes sealed away. The surface becomes smoother. The irritation becomes harder to feel. This is why pearls have so often been used as symbols of transformation. The comparison is simple. Something unwanted enters. Something patient covers it. Something smooth remains. But the science underneath keeps the symbol from floating away. A pearl is not just a nice idea about hardship becoming beauty. It is a real object made by a real animal through a real biological process. The animal's mantle tissue secretes minerals and proteins. Those materials harden into nacre. The layers build around a center, and after months or years, the result can be held between two fingers. That is what makes the metaphor feel so grounded. The beauty is not separate from the response. It is the response. In a saltwater oyster, a cultured pearl often begins when a small round bead is placed into the animal, along with a tiny piece of mantle tissue from another oyster. That mantle tissue helps form the pearl sac, the living pocket that coats the bead with nacre. In many freshwater mussels, a pearl may begin with only a tiny piece of mantle tissue. No large bead is needed. The tissue itself can begin the nacre building process. In both cases, the pearl forms because the mollusk treats the center as something to cover. The animal's body keeps working in the only way it knows. It makes shell material. It smooths surfaces. It builds a barrier. The same action that protects the animal creates the object people admire. This does not mean the animal feels the pearl the way a person feels a wound. An oyster does not have a brain like a mammal. It does not think through pain, memory, or meaning as we do. Its nervous system is much simpler. So it is better not to imagine the pearl as an emotional act. It is a protective act, a biological act, a quiet material answer to contact, damage, or displacement. That may be why the pearl is so calming to think about. It does not rush. It does not fight the roughness with force. It covers. It repeats. It makes a surface safer by adding one soft, bright layer after another. Even the word irritation can be misleading if it makes the process sound dramatic. Inside the shell, the change may be very small. A point of contact, a misplaced cell, a tiny living invader, a small pocket of tissue doing shell work in the wrong place. Yet over time, the result can become visible enough to change human history. The same process that begins inside a hidden animal has filled royal portraits, wedding traditions, mourning jewelry, trade routes, and legends. A pearl is small, but the transformation behind it is exact. Rough to smooth, exposed to covered, hidden disturbance to visible jewel. And once people understood this process more clearly, they began to wonder whether it could be guided. If a pearl could form when something entered the right place inside a mollusk, perhaps human hands could begin the process carefully. What had once seemed like a rare accident of nature could become something watched, tended, and slowly grown on purpose. For most of pearl history, people could only search. They could dive. They could open oysters. They could sort through shells. They could hope. But they could not reliably ask an oyster to make a pearl. That began to change in Japan in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. At that time, Japan had long coastal waters, skilled fishing communities, and native pearl oysters such as Pinctada fukata, the small oyster later known for Akoya pearls. People understood that natural pearls formed inside living mollusks. But knowing that a pearl formed was not the same as knowing how to begin one. The old pearl world depended on chance. The new pearl world would depend on careful human timing, surgery, water, and patience. Kokichi Mikimoto is the name most strongly connected with this change. He was born in 1858 in Toba, a coastal town in Mie Prefecture, Japan. As a young man, he became interested in pearls not only as luxury objects, but as something that might be grown. Natural pearl oyster beds were being heavily harvested, and fine pearls were still rare. Mikimoto believed that if people could understand the pearl-forming process, they might protect the industry and create pearls more reliably. In 1893, Mikimoto succeeded in producing cultured blister pearls. A blister pearl forms attached to the inside of the shell, rather than loose and round inside the animal's body. It can still be covered with nacre, but one side is usually flat or joined to the shell. This was not yet the classic round pearl necklace bead many people picture, but it was a major step. It showed that humans could encourage an oyster to lay down nacre in a controlled way. Other Japanese innovators were also important. Tatsuhei Mise and Tokichi Nishikawa developed methods that helped make spherical cultured pearls possible. A spherical pearl is round all the way around, not attached to the shell wall. Their work involved placing a small bead and a tiny piece of mantle tissue inside the oyster. The bead gave the pearl a round center. The mantle tissue helped form the pearl sac, the pocket of living tissue that coats the bead with nacre. In the early 1900s, these methods began to make round cultured pearls more practical. This changed the pearl world forever. A cultured pearl is still a real pearl. It is not a glass imitation. It is not plastic. It is not simply painted to look pearly. It is made inside a living oyster or mussel. The animal still lays down nacre. The layers still grow over time. The glow still comes from the same shell-building material. The difference is how the beginning is started. A natural pearl begins without human help. A cultured pearl begins when a person carefully places the starting material inside the mollusk. After that, the animal must still do the work. It must survive. It must feed. It must coat the center. It must build the nacre layer by layer. In this way, cultured pearls sit between nature and craft. Human hands begin the process. The animal completes it. Water carries the food and minerals. Time gives the nacre depth. This made pearls more available than they had ever been before. Before cultured pearls, a strand of well-matched natural pearls could require years of searching and enormous wealth. Every pearl in the strand had to be close in size, color, luster, and shape. After cultured pearl farming improved, more people could own real pearls. Pearls did not lose their connection to oysters or water, but they were no longer only rare accidents found by divers opening wild shells. They became farmed biological gems. This also changed the old natural pearl fisheries. Places that once depended on wild oysters had to face a new world. Cultured pearls could be produced more predictably, sorted more easily, and sold to a wider public. The pearl moved from ancient chance into modern cultivation. But cultivation did not make the process simple. It made the living animal even more important. Once people learned how to begin a pearl, the deeper work became keeping the oyster healthy long enough to finish it. A pearl farm was not a factory in the usual sense. It was a place of baskets, ropes, shells, clean water, careful hands, and waiting animals. The treasure was no longer only found. It was tended. A pearl farm begins with living animals, not with trays of finished gems, not with metal molds, not with machines stamping out identical beads. It begins with oysters or mussels kept in water, watched over through seasons and handled with care. On a saltwater pearl farm, young oysters may be raised until they are large and healthy enough for grafting. Grafting is the careful process of placing the beginning of a pearl inside the animal. For many saltwater pearls, this beginning includes a small round bead called a nucleus. The nucleus is often made from the shell of a freshwater mussel because that shell is smooth, strong, and accepted well by pearl oysters. Along with the bead, a worker places a tiny piece of mantle tissue from another oyster. This small piece of tissue is important because the mantle is what knows how to make nacre. If the graft works, the tissue forms a pearl sac around the bead. That pearl sac becomes the living pocket that coats the nucleus. Layer by layer, it adds nacre. The work requires steady hands. The oyster is gently opened just enough for the graft to be placed inside. If it is opened too far, the animal can be harmed. If the bead is placed poorly, the pearl may grow unevenly. If the oyster rejects the nucleus, no pearl forms at all. Even in skilled pearl farms, not every oyster produces a good pearl. Some do not survive. Some reject the bead. Some create pearls with marks, rings, dull surfaces, or irregular shapes. This is why pearl farming is not the same as factory production. Human hands can begin the process, but the animal still decides much of the result through its own biology. After grafting, the oyster is returned to the water. It may be placed in a basket, net, or panel, then suspended from floating lines beneath the surface. In places like Japan, French Polynesia, Australia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, pearl farms often sit in sheltered bays or lagoons, where the water can move, but heavy waves are reduced. The oysters need clean water flowing through them. They are filter feeders, which means they pull water through their bodies and collect tiny food particles from it. Those particles may include plankton, the small drifting plants and animals that form the base of many aquatic food chains. While the oyster feeds, the pearl grows inside, slowly, quietly, hidden from sight. For Akoya pearls, farmers may wait around 1 to 2 years. For larger South Sea pearls, the wait can be longer, often 2 years or more. Freshwater pearl farming can work differently. Many freshwater mussels are tissue nucleated. Instead of receiving a round bead, they may receive small pieces of mantle tissue. A single mussel can sometimes produce many pearls at once because several pieces of tissue can be placed in different areas. This is one reason freshwater pearls became much more common over time. But common does not mean simple. Freshwater mussels still need the right water, enough food, and protection from stress. Pearl farmers must clean the shells and baskets so algae, barnacles, and other organisms do not build up too heavily. They must watch for disease. They must protect the animals from predators such as crabs, fish, rays, or boring worms that can damage shells. They must pay attention to temperature, because sudden heat or cold can weaken oysters and mussels. Storms can break lines. Pollution can harm whole farms. Too much mud, chemicals, or low oxygen in the water can stress or kill the animals. The pearl inside may be small, but the world around it has to stay balanced. When harvest finally comes, the farmer opens the mollusk and removes the pearl. Some oysters can be grafted again if they are healthy, especially for larger pearls. Others are finished after one harvest. Then the pearls are cleaned, sorted, and graded. They are separated by size, shape, color, luster, surface quality, and nacre thickness. Only a portion will become fine jewelry. Many will be too uneven, too dull, too marked, or too strange for high value. Still, each one is a record of the same process. A small beginning placed inside a living shell, a return to water, months or years of nacre, and the patient care of people who know that the pearl cannot be forced. It can only be started, protected, and waited for. So pearl farming reveals something gentle and important. A pearl is not only a product, it is a relationship between human hands, animal tissue, mineral layers, and water. And if the water is not healthy, the pearl cannot truly thrive. A pearl grows inside an animal, but the animal grows inside water. That means every pearl is connected to the place around it. The temperature, the food, the minerals, the movement of the tide, the cleanliness of the bay, river, lake, or lagoon. Oysters and mussels are filter feeders. This means they pull water through their bodies and strain tiny particles from it. A living oyster can draw in water through one opening, pass it over its gills, collect food, and send cleaner water back out. The food may include plankton, which are tiny drifting organisms. Some plankton are plant-like, using sunlight to grow. Others are tiny animals. Together, they form the base of many water ecosystems. A pearl oyster does not hunt in the way a fish hunts. It waits. It opens slightly. Water passes through. The animal takes what it needs from the moving water. Freshwater mussels live in a similar slow rhythm. Many rest partly buried in sand, mud, or gravel at the bottom of rivers and lakes. Their shells may look still, but water is passing through them. They are feeding, breathing, and sensing the world through the water around them. This is why water quality matters so much. If the water holds enough oxygen, enough food, and the right balance of minerals, oysters, and mussels can grow well. If the water becomes polluted, too warm, too muddy, or too low in oxygen, the animals can weaken. A weak mollusk may not build nacre smoothly. It may become sick. It may reject a pearl nucleus. It may die before a pearl has time to finish. The pearl inside the shell is hidden, but it is not separate from these conditions. A change in the water can become a change in the animal. A change in the animal can become a change in the pearl. Pearl farmers pay close attention to this. They watch temperature because many pearl oysters grow best within a comfortable range. Water that becomes too hot can stress the animal. Water that becomes too cold can slow its growth. Sudden changes can be especially harmful. They also watch for algae blooms. Algae are simple plant-like organisms that live in water. Some algae are normal and provide food, but when certain algae grow too quickly, they can reduce oxygen or release harmful substances. A bloom can make the water look green, brown, or reddish. To the pearl farmer, that color change can mean danger. Disease can also spread through oyster or mussel populations. When many animals are kept in one farming area, farmers must clean baskets, check shells, remove dead animals, and protect the farm from parasites and pests. A shell may be scraped to remove organisms growing on it. Ropes may be lifted and checked. Baskets may be moved to better water. This is quiet, repetitive work, but it matters. A pearl farm is not only a place where pearls are grown. It is a small, managed ecosystem. The animals depend on the plankton. The plankton depend on light and nutrients. The water depends on currents, rainfall, temperature, and the health of the surrounding coast or watershed. A watershed is the land area where rain and streams drain into the same body of water. What happens on land can reach the pearl. Soil washing into rivers can cloud the water. Chemicals from farms or cities can travel downstream. Plastic, fuel, sewage, and heavy metals can harm shellfish. Even if the pearl is forming quietly inside a shell, the outside world is still touching it through the water. This makes pearls different from gems pulled from ancient rock. A ruby or sapphire may hold a record of geological pressure and heat from deep time. A pearl holds a more recent record, the life of one animal, the water of one place, the months or years when nacre was being built. It is a biological gem, but also an environmental one. A good pearl is not made by technique alone. The graft can be skillful, the farmer can be patient, the animal can be strong. But without living water, the process cannot hold together. The glow of a pearl begins to feel even softer when this is understood. It is not only nacre, it is water made visible through shell. It is the slow work of a filter feeder, resting in a riverbed or hanging beneath a lagoon. And the same material that becomes a round pearl also spreads across the inner shell, where humans found another quiet treasure waiting in plain sight. The round pearl is only one way nacre can appear. Before nacre gathers into a bead, it often spreads quietly across the inside of a shell. This inner lining is called mother of pearl. It is made from the same basic material as a pearl. Thin layers of calcium carbonate. Organic material made by the animal. Mineral plates stacked so finely that light bends through them and returns with a soft glow. But mother of pearl does not form as a sphere. it forms as a surface, a smooth, bright wall inside the shell. If a pearl is nacre wrapped around a hidden center, mother of pearl is nacre laid across the animal's inner shelter. The difference is shape. One is rounded, one is spread out. Both come from the mantle, the living tissue that builds shell. Both are made by a mollusk protecting and shaping the space around its soft body. You can see mother of pearl inside certain oysters, mussels, abalones, and other shells. Abalone shells are especially famous for it. From the outside, an abalone shell may look rough, dull, greenish, brown, or crusted by life in the sea. But inside, it can glow with blue, green, pink, silver, and violet. The colors seem to move when the shell turns in the light. That glow made people notice it long before microscopes explained the layers. Mother of pearl was easier to use than whole round pearls because it came in broader pieces. A craftsperson could cut the shell lining into shapes: small circles, thin strips, flat tiles, curved pieces. Then those pieces could be polished and fitted into objects. This kind of decoration is called inlay. Inlay means placing one material into the surface of another, so it sits flush or nearly flush with it. Mother of pearl inlay has been used in furniture, boxes, trays, musical instruments, jewelry, and religious objects. A dark wooden box with pale shell flowers set into the lid. A guitar neck marked with shining fretboard dots. A violin bow frog decorated with a small shell slide. An old accordion with pearl-like keys. A knife handle with a soft white shimmer. A church object or ceremonial piece catching candlelight with small pieces of shell. All of these use the same luminous material that can also become a pearl. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, mother of pearl buttons became especially common. Before plastic buttons took over, shell buttons were widely used on shirts, dresses, gloves, and baby clothing. Factories cut them from shells using small circular saws or drills. A single shell could become many buttons. Some were plain white. Others showed soft rainbow color. If you look at an old shirt button made from shell, it may seem ordinary at first. But it is really a little disc of nacre, shaped by a mollusk, cut by human hands, and worn through daily life. Mother of pearl was also used because it was tough for its thickness. The layered structure that helps nacre resist cracking in a shell also made it useful in small crafted pieces. It could chip or break if struck hard, but it held a smooth polish and reflected light in a way glass could not fully copy. Its beauty was quiet, but it lasted. That is why it appeared in objects meant to be touched often. Buttons, handles, boxes, musical instruments, small personal items kept in pockets, drawers, and dressing tables. Mother of pearl also shows something important about pearls themselves. The pearl is not a separate miracle. It belongs to a larger shell story. The same material that lines the home of the animal can be shaped into human craft. The same nacre that protects soft tissue can decorate wood, metal, cloth, and bone. The shell's inner wall and the round pearl are two versions of the same living process. One stayed spread across the shell. One gathered into a bead. One became buttons, inlay, and carved ornament. One became earrings, necklaces, and royal treasures. Both began with water. Both began with the mantle. Both began with a living animal, quietly building layer after layer. So when we return to the pearl now, it no longer stands alone. Around it is the shell. Around the shell is the animal. Around the animal is the water. Around the water is the long human story of searching, wearing, trading, farming, and remembering. The small pearl from the beginning has become part of something much larger. So the pearl returns to the hand again. Small, smooth, quiet. At the beginning, it may have seemed like a simple jewel, a white bead on a necklace, a pale earring in a velvet box, a soft round object passed down through a family drawer. But now, that same pearl carries more inside it. Not because it has changed, but because we can see more of what was always there. A real pearl is one of the rare gems made by a living animal. It begins inside a mollusk, often a saltwater oyster or a freshwater mussel. The animal is soft-bodied, protected by a shell it builds through life. Inside that shell, a thin layer of tissue called the mantle releases minerals and proteins. Those materials form nacre, also called mother of pearl. Nacre is made mostly of calcium carbonate crystals, often aragonite, arranged in tiny flat layers with organic material between them. Those layers are why a pearl does not simply shine on the surface. Light enters the nacre, bends, reflects, and returns through thousands of thin layers. That is what gives a pearl its soft inner glow. The old grain of sand story is only a small part of the truth. Natural pearls usually begin because something is out of place inside the animal. A parasite, an injury, a tiny piece of mantle tissue where it should not be. The mollusk responds by coating the disturbance with nacre until the surface becomes smoother. That is the first lesson a pearl leaves behind. It is not a stone. It is shell material, shaped by life. It is not made quickly. It may take months or years depending on the species, the water, and the kind of pearl being formed. Round pearls are rare because the layers must grow evenly in every direction. Many pearls become oval, button-shaped, drop-shaped, circled, or baroque. Their colors can be white, cream, pink, lavender, silver, gold, gray, green, blue, or nearly black. Akoya pearls often come from Pinctada fucata. Tahitian pearls come from the black-lipped pearl oyster, Pinctada margaritifera. South Sea pearls can come from the large Pinctada maxima. Freshwater pearls often come from mussels in lakes, rivers, and ponds. And every one of them depends on water, on feeding, on minerals, on temperature, on the health of the animal. A pearl also carries human history. Before pearl farming, divers searched wild oyster beds in places like the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Mannar. They descended without modern scuba gear, gathered oysters by hand, and often opened thousands of shells without finding a fine pearl. That rarity helped pearls become symbols of wealth, purity, wisdom, marriage, mourning, royalty, and power. Later, cultured pearls changed everything. In Japan, Kokichi Mikimoto and other innovators helped make it possible to begin pearl formation on purpose. Human hands could place the beginning inside the mollusk, but the animal still had to do the work. The nacre still had to grow. The water still had to stay alive. So the pearl is biology, chemistry, history, trade, risk, farming, symbolism, and craft gathered into one small object. Even mother of pearl, the shining lining inside certain shells, tells the same story in a different shape. Spread across a shell, nacre became buttons, inlay, musical instruments, boxes, handles, and sacred objects. Wrapped around a hidden center, it became a pearl. The same material, the same patient layers, the same quiet animal work. And now, when the pearl rests in the hand, it no longer feels simple. Its surface is smooth, but its story is layered. It holds the soft body of the mollusk, the rough shell, the hidden mantle, the thin mineral plates, the water moving through gills, the diver's breath, the royal portrait, the wedding necklace, the old button cut from mother of pearl, the pearl farm suspended beneath a warm lagoon. It is small enough to lose in a drawer, but large enough to hold a whole chain of life and time. A pearl is not beautiful because it escapes the natural world. It is beautiful because it belongs so completely to it. A disturbance covered slowly. A shell's inner glow gathered into a sphere. A living response made visible. And as the night grows quieter, the pearl can become what it has always been. A calm little record of water, patience, and transformation. Layer after layer, light after light, resting softly in the dark.